Hey guys, the Mentor Mom here. Today we are going to be talking mealtime battles and how to get toddlers or preschoolers to eat. Let's get to it. So, parents often ask me, how do I make my toddler eat? And my simple response to that question is, you can't. You can't make them eat. They have to want to eat. And there are a number of different things that we can do during those meal times to make it a little bit more appealing to them. Okay? We need to understand that toddlers don't have much control over their environment at home. I know that sounds crazy. You're probably thinking they're running the roost. But actually, if you think about it, they really only have control over three things: what goes in their mouth, what comes out of their mouth, and when they go to sleep. And what are the things that frustrate us the most with toddlers? Mealtimes, bedtimes, and a lot of times trying to get them to use their words. We can make mealtimes with young kids a little bit easier if we wear the wiggles out before they sit down at the table. What do I mean by that? Get them moving, get them outside, get them running, get them jumping, get all those good chemicals that come from heavy work moving around in that brain. So when it comes time to actually sit down at the table, they're able to do so a lot more easily. Research has shown that young children know how much food they need to eat. What happens is we start to override the body's natural awareness of this with our comments like, finish what's on your plate. You need to eat. If they're hungry, they will eat. Make mealtimes fun. Incorporate some music into it. Some songs that maybe you do at the beginning of the meal, like singing Open, Shut Them. Make it enjoyable and engaging for the toddler, because it isn't just about the food, right? It's about the community, the communication that you're building at that table with your child. So keep it fun, keep it light, and back off some of the pressure. If you want your young kids to eat more at the dinner table, then you need to cut back on the snacks 2 to 3 hours before that meal. And that includes milk and juices. All of those things make their tummies a little bit more full. If you really want them to eat, they got to be a little bit hungry when they sit down at the table. Eat at least one meal at the table every day. The research has shown that when families have a communal meal together at least once a day, that it can long-term help avoid problems like smoking, drug use, drinking, risky behaviors. So use that to your advantage. Start that routine now. It doesn't have to be dinner. It can be breakfast. It can be lunch. And I know there's going to be some days where you're not going to be able to do it. But try as much as possible to have one meal at the table each day so that you can build in that communication with your child. I promise you, you will never regret that. We need to respect toddlers' communication. I've said this many times before, but 93% of communication is tone of voice and body language. Only 7% is actually our vocabulary. So when little ones are turning their body away and shaking their head no, and we're continuing to try to get them to eat something, how would you feel if somebody did that to you, right? You'd be like, this person isn't paying any attention to what I'm trying to tell them. I don't want to be around them. We're really not helping that communication that we're trying to encourage with that child. So if they're turning their head away, we want to affirm that we understand what that means. Oh, you're all done. You don't want any more. And then go ahead and put it away. How about we try putting ourselves in their shoes? Do we always like everything that's put in front of us when we go out with friends or go over to somebody's house for meals and snacks? No, we pick the one thing that we might like the most if we're not sure about those other options. We also wouldn't respond well if people are trying to make us eat things when we don't want them and we're telling them no, right? I think it really could be helpful for us as grown-ups to sometimes put ourselves in our child's shoes and really think about this particular routine and what do we want them to do as grown-ups? You got your preschooler sitting down at the table and they say they don't want to eat and they're not hungry. What do? Been there, my friend. I understand. I remember when my son was little, he would want cookies and snacks before dinner and I'd be like, no, it's almost time to eat. sit down for the meal. He wouldn't like whatever was offered, and he'd say, I'm not hungry, or I'm all done. I'd try to keep him at the table. It just turned into a miserable experience for everybody. He didn't want anything. I was frustrated that I'd made this big meal and spent all this time and energy, and I couldn't sit down and enjoy it because I was managing him. I finally learned to just say to him, oh, if you're done eating, go on up and hang out in your room. I'll let you know when we're all done with dinner, and let him go. That was not easy because I worried about, geez, he's going to be hungry. So what would happen? 10, 15 minutes after I've finished cleaning up the table, putting the dishes away, who comes showing up in the kitchen wanting something to eat? My son, right? This was hard because I wanted to give him an apple or a banana, something, because I knew he didn't eat his meal. But I would just tell him, oh, I'm sorry, the kitchen's closed. I'll be sure to have something really good for you in the morning for breakfast. He didn't like that, right? I'm hungry. Yeah, I'd be hungry too if I didn't eat my dinner. And I just kind of let it go. It was really hard initially to do this one. And I'll never forget that first time I tried this strategy, when I went up to tuck him into bed, he said to me, I'm so hungry. I'm going to starve to death. And I said to him, oh, well, you've got 14 days before your body shuts down. I'm sure you'll decide to eat something before then. You should have seen the steam coming out of his ears. Wasn't easy to do. Again, I was really worried about him not eating. I felt like a bad mom not letting him eat, but I wanted him to realize when food is put before you, that is your opportunity to eat it. I'm not going to make you eat it, especially if it's something that you don't like, but we all have choices. You want them to learn to make good choices during meal times, okay? So the next day he got up, we had a big, huge breakfast. He was fine. And it really helped take away some of those struggles and battles that we were having at mealtime, because I wasn't trying to make him eat. If he didn't want to eat, he could go to his room and play for a little bit until we were all done. We enjoyed our meals more. He enjoyed his meals more. And guess what? He continued to grow. He continued to learn. There was no detrimental effect as a result of using this strategy. The need for control amongst our toddlers is strong. So one thing that you can do during mealtimes and snacks is to incorporate choices. Give them two choices of two things that you really don't care about. It could be, do you want an apple or a banana? It could be, do you want to use a spoon or a fork? It really doesn't matter what the choice is. You're labeling, you're giving opportunities for communication, and you're sharing control. And the research has shown that children who get choices more frequently during the day are less likely to have meltdowns. So, choices. There's a lot of motor planning involved for toddlers when they're eating. Self-feeding takes a lot of motor coordination. So one thing that you can do to make that process easier for them is to make sure they're sitting in a well-supported seat. If their trunk and their torso is well supported, it's easier for them to use those fine motor skills, to use their fingers and forks and spoons. Is your little one throwing their food during meals? Pushing their plate off of the table? So this is not always a popular strategy for parents, but what we want to do, especially with toddlers if we're working on communication, is let them know that when you throw your food on the floor, that body language is telling me you're all done, okay? So that's probably not what they meant. Sometimes it might be, but we want them to realize that your gestures lead to results. It's communication, right? So if your toddler throws the food on the floor, the cup on the floor, whatever the case may be, then you can just say to them, oh, you're all done. Take their food, clean them up, and let them go. Now, if you're worried that your little one didn't eat a lot and is going to be hungry, then just make sure that the snack that you have after that meal is one that's going to be loaded with protein. It's going to be healthy. It's going to fill their tummies until the next meal. Okay? So if they throw their food or throw their cup, they're telling us they're all done. It's really important for us to continue to expose our kids to different foods consistently. The research has indicated that it can take anywhere up to 40 different exposures to a food before a little one is going to decide that they actually like it. Yeah, up to 40. How many times do we quit after 2? Well, they don't like broccoli, or well, they don't like roast beef, and we just give up and take that and put it on the will not eat list for our little ones. So make sure that you continue to offer it, to have it at the table. You never know. Over time, they might become more open to trying that item and actually end up liking it. What about those picky eaters? The ones where you feel like you have to make a whole meal for them? I implore you as a mom, do not do that. It seems like in my 20 years of being a home visitor and working with toddlers and their families that most kids do well at breakfast, right? Because usually we're just kind of setting them up while we're taking care of things around the house and the kitchen, getting other kids maybe out the door for school. They seem to do well at lunchtime as well, right? And that's a lot of times because we're not sitting down with them. We're maybe busy in the kitchen again or working on something while we give them a sandwich and some crackers. It always seems to be dinner time where the biggest struggle is. And that's oftentimes when parents kind of fall into making a whole separate meal for their child because they don't like anything that they're being offered at the table. You really don't want to set that foundation up, right? We want them to know you eat what is put in front of you, but the trick to that is to make sure that there's at least one thing on that table that you know your child is going to eat. Whether that's applesauce or a dinner roll or mac and cheese and you have it with every meal, always have something that you know that your little one will eat and continue to provide them with the opportunities to try the other things. Don't load their plate up with all sorts of stuff if you know that they're not going to eat it. Just give them little bits. They need that opportunity sometimes just to explore and touch those things before they're going to be willing to actually try eating it. All right, you guys, I want to hear from you. What tips or strategies do you have for other parents that help with your meal times? I know you've got some good stuff out there to share. So drop a comment down below. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on my YouTube channel for more tips and strategies related to toddlers.